Welcome to the Open Treasury Podcast, your go-to source for the latest news and analysis in corporate cash and treasury management. This show is brought to you by CTMfile.com and the Treasury News Network, where Treasury professionals learn and share the information that matters most.
Hello, and a warm welcome to the Open Treasury Podcast from CTMfile. I am Pushpendra Mehta, Executive Writer for CTMfile and standing in for Jack Large again. My guest for today is Craig Jeffery, Managing Partner at Strategic Treasurer. Welcome back to the Open Treasury Podcast, Craig.
Thanks, Push. It's good to be here again.
Wonderful. Let us now begin our weekly review of the latest Treasury news and developments that bear amplification. The first newsworthy story for today is the announcement of the partnership between Ripple and Modulr on cross-border payments. Craig, is this significant by itself, or is this just another indication that they are focusing on Europe after regulatory issues in the US?
I think it's probably some of both. Some of our listeners probably are familiar with Ripple. It's a U.S. fintech, does a lot with blockchain, crypto solutions, sits behind XRP, a crypto asset. A little bit over a week ago or so, Ripple announced a partnership with Modulr. This is one of the few non-banks that can access the Bank of England settlement services. So that is significant, just access to a broader network of payment platforms like through the Bank of England. So that is interesting. I think the other piece that is to the second part of your question is Ripple has described and stated that 2021 was their most successful year to date, as they said. Their transaction volume more than doubled on RippleNet, and its payment volume is over 10 billion. So it's not massive, but it's not small. The company's valuation recently was somewhere around 15 billion. As you noted, there's challenges on the U.S. side for, the SEC filed an action against Ripple in 2020 for 1.3 billion, alleging some of the XRP was unlawfully sold. It was an unregistered security, according to the charge, and that created a movement away from some of this activity or some of the Ripple network. But I guess we see this increased focus on European markets is really reflective of the U.S. financial regulatory impact for issuing XRP. So I think it's both. I think it's significant by itself, and I think it's reflective of some of the tension that they have in the U.S. market.
The second piece of news that caught our attention pertains to the Winter Olympics being held in China. China has used the event to launch their digital legal tender, or their sovereign digital currency, also known as the digital yuan. Craig, is this a finisher, a medal contender?
I like it. So gold, silver, or bronze. There's obviously a lot in the news about quarantining athletes and giving them crisp or chips, and you just package foods, maybe not the right kind of fare for Olympic athletes that have tested positive. So those are a little bit of the off the podium finishing. But for them to use the Winter Olympics I think it's an ideal time to create and roll this out to the world. I mean, they mentioned that over 250 million users nationwide were up on the platform. They have a digital yuan wallet, to use the eCNY. So this is the Chinese yuan. This is significant. They had, I think, the equivalent of 1.5 billion worth of transactions by the end of 2021. This is a big global market that's coming to their doorstep. I think that's significant. Bloomberg thinks that the digital yuan could reach 9% of the domestic market by 2025. So it's not a gold medal finish, but it might be in contention for silver. But definitely a good idea to take advantage of the world coming to your door to promote this digital currency.
As the battle for digital currency supremacy continues. The next story that merits discussion is about how the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston and MIT have come up with a design for a US central bank digital currency, also referred to as the digital dollar. Why has this story hit our highlight reel?
There's a couple things that struck me as I read this push. One was, it's a combination of researchers at MIT, or the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the foremost science academies in the U.S., the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, one of the, a very significant Federal Reserve Bank part of the network. They've been engaged in the study of, central bank digital currency technology. And it's reported that they have a system that technically and tested can handle 1.7 million transactions per second without the use of DLT or distributed ledger technology. So this high performance or high scalability issue or opportunity is one of the significant drawbacks or regulating items on distributed currency. If you're running it through this, it takes a lot of processing power, a lot of energy. It's slow, but they showed 170,000 transactions per second during DLT process. Very interesting to see how quickly these things were completed. Almost all of them, over 99%, were completed in less than a second. So this is the whole validation of the digital currency process. This is a significant, significant breakthrough in terms of how fast this process is. And this holds significant promise, I think, on the CBDC side, the central bank digital currency side, as this is one of the, gating items. And this seems to be very good news for solving that push.
The final topic for discussion revolves around KeyBank's decision to launch a cloud-first banking solution. Is there anything to see here?
This has some interest to me. I think it's worth noting. It may not be the first. You look at what Goldman Sachs did with their TXB, their transaction banking, all in the cloud native environment, building that up at obviously a bigger investment bank. Capital One has long been running a lot of their activities in the cloud. So KeyBank, one of the, top 20 bank in the U.S., did a partnership or is partnering with Google, using the Google Cloud platform there. Their cloud native platform is Google Cloud, and also Deloitte. So this is a cloud first banking solution. I think that's what we would refer to as cloud native. And they've described it as the first major regional bank in the U.S. to run its primary platforms and applications in the cloud. So there's a couple of qualifications there. Major regional bank, as opposed to a global bank, to run its primary platforms and applications in the cloud rather than the periphery or the front end side. I think all that aside is what we're seeing here is this crossing the chasm of older technology and maybe crossing several chasms at once to much newer, more scalable systems that are better at big data. They have massive compute power. And so KeyBank, with this move and with their partnering, is showing how to move across these chasms. I think this really bears significant watching because the speed and development on these, cloud native, cloud first type solutions will really show how far ahead can a bank get when they're on a much more scalable, faster development platform. Partnering with two big players in there, really interesting to see how can you be innovative. How can you innovate as a big bank, a major regional bank? You're talking with a tech player and a consulting firm to help do that. So this definitely bears watching. I'm really interested in keeping a tab on this.
So if I were to ask you, what is your choice for the biggest story of the past week and why? What would that be?
I'm torn a little between the central bank digital currency. I think that's significant because I think that's going to be a big player, but I'm going to have to give the edge to the cloud first banking solution. I think, while this is not the first bank who's doing this, in terms of the first major regional bank, I think this will signify many, many banks moving off of very much legacy, 2 generations old, 1 generation old tech. And these are massive shifts. I think that one is, we're going to see how this impacts Key and how the other banks follow on that. So that's my number one.
A very big thank you to you, Craig, and to our CTM audience for joining us on this edition of Open Treasury. Please subscribe and look in the show notes for the article links. Thank you.
This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and statements made by Strategic Treasurer LLC on this podcast are not intended as legal, business, consulting, or tax advice. For more information, visit and bookmark strategictreasurer.com.